Viewers and subscribers, welcome back to Beating the Press podcast. I am your host, Rafa. Now, coming up in today's podcast, we're going to be reviewing the two big clashes which took place over the weekend. Liverpool running away 2-0 winners, and Arsenal drawing with Chelsea. Now, joining me this evening to review these two matches, we have returning to the podcast, Christophe.
Good to be back.
Yes, Christophe, two very interesting games, two different outcomes. But let's first turn our attention to the Liverpool Everton game. How did you see that one? Liverpool running away 2-0 winners eventually.
Um, well, it was an interesting matchup. I would say before the red card, I thought Liverpool were playing well, looking dangerous, but the red card would have obviously given them a boost. Not as much as I would have thought, only winning 2-0.
Well,
But
I mean, Everton was really set up quite defensive. And I mean, going down to 10 as well, that even made them more, you could say negative, pretty much withstanding the pressure and not really allowing much space for Liverpool to really run into.
right. I mean, going down that early to 10 men, I mean, sometimes it can be more difficult to play against 10 men, as well as you're going to expect that the team are going to put everybody behind the ball when defending.
Yeah, and that definitely was the case. I mean, Liverpool started well in terms of the lineups, not much, what should I say, surprises, as we had mentioned in the preview, possible omissions were the South American players, but as we saw, the only omission there was really Nunes.
When they
Jota
started on the
came in for
bench.
him, right? And Diaz started, McAllister started, you know. And the one change which we had anticipated was Tumikas coming in for Robertson, who was out with an injury. And the same thing on the Everton side of things. Not many surprises. It's the lineup which Sean Dyche has found to have given the team a positive boost. But, Ashley Young, one of the more experienced players, really going taking that red card for two yellows and so early in the game as well. That definitely had a major swing on proceedings. But
I know.
Everton hung in there.
The quality of refereeing this season has been quite strange. Seeing Ashley Young get those two yellows so early in a game versus if you go back to Man City versus Arsenal and Kovacic not getting sent off, very strange.
Yeah, it's
So
the same
I'm
thing in
not
this
sure
game
that they
as
need
well.
to.
When
Right. So
Kanate got an early yellow and could have picked up another yellow to get a red, but the referee failed to produce. So Liverpool could somewhat consider themselves lucky as well to have finished the game with 11. That was a
even
major talking point.
even the Arsenal Chelsea game, Cole Palmer could have seen himself sent off early, but the referee decided to keep his cards.
Yeah, I mean, the refereeing decision has been rather inconsistent, but sometimes you're on the bitter end of it, and some other times you're on the positive end. And even in this game, it was a handball which led to a penalty which Salah buried. And years gone by before VAR, that's a call which may not have been given.
Right.
But these days, once the ball hits your hand in the penalty box, then chances are it's gonna be reviewed, and once you see the referee goes to that monitor, 99.9% of the time he's gonna change his decision as opposed to the decision he made during the run of the game. And so was the case in this one as well. Handball and Keane, who came on at halftime to somewhat help to solidify the Everton defense, which was working for quite a bit until that decision, which really unlocked the defense. Salah stepped up, pressure penalty, but more often than not, he buried it in the back of the net. And at that point in time, we had spoken about it in the preview show as well, that one of the only ways Everton could really get back in the game was through set pieces. And they had quite a number of set plays, in terms of corners, a few free kicks, which they, put the ball in the Liverpool box. But Liverpool seemed to have handled it well, and that seemed to have been the only real way for Everton to really get back in this one. And then, of course, a late breakaway from the Liverpool while Everton was pushing forward, that second goal on the counter attack. And at that point it was game set match. But to be honest, Everton really stood up firmly, especially going down to 10. They still managed to keep themselves in the game, still managed to give themselves a fighting chance, even down to the latter part of the game, because 1-0 lead in the EPL is really very fragile. And I'm sure Everton would have been delighted to have even taken a point from this game, especially going to 10 so early. So they really kept themselves in the game, and for sure they can take some positives, going forward. It wasn't all rosy for Liverpool, a few, a few moments there. Especially, Calvert-Lewin got a very, very early chance, I believe, maybe in the first 3 minutes, where he had a header but put it straight at Alisson. And we spoke about Liverpool conceding the first goal, and that was the moment, Calvert-Lewin could have taken advantage of that fragility. But, it was not to be. And it was 2-0 Liverpool at the end of the day. I mean, what do you think about it from a Liverpool point of view? Do you feel Liverpool would have been satisfied with the sort of display they put on?
Um, if I was Klopp, I would probably be going back to the drawing board because it took far too long and a penalty decision to break down Everton, like all the way in the 75th minute, and then the second in the 97th minute after Everton had already dropped their guard. So I'd be going back and looking at the attacking, what can we do to improve what's happening here? Because they had chances. They had a few. I mean, yeah, some shots on targets, but they didn't break down, didn't score.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a team like Everton, in terms of preparation, what you find is that I think the better of Liverpool chances came on the break, because it's a very good defensive setup. When you're well drilled and well coached in the art of defending, even the best of teams will find it difficult to break down two banks of four, which was pretty much what Everton was playing, sitting deep, allowing no space behind. And oftentimes in cases like those, it really takes something special, a moment of individual brilliance, or, something special to really unlock a defense of that unit. And most times you find the key is with a set piece, a corner, a free kick, a long range shot. So you could do all the training, and all the practice, but when it comes, it's very difficult. And as you said, they were locked in down to 10. Pretty much they were just trying to hold on and not really looking to really attack. So all their players were behind the ball, and in cases like those, very challenging. I mean, as you said, Liverpool should be happy with the win for sure, but I wouldn't be too hard on the team, in all honesty.
I think it's the type of game where you would decide to utilize a target man type striker, where you have a target in the box to hold up play to get those headers in, and then you could have your inside forwards coming in for rebounds
Mm.
versus trying to play through a bank of four, go over the top.
Yeah, I mean, there are different ways to really penetrate that low block. But as you say, yeah, a target striker, that's a possibility. But again, that may have been countered by the tall defenders. Everton would have been, I think, of all the things Everton would have been prepared for, it would have been the aerial challenge. Some really good defenders, Ital, Tarkowski, Keane, Brathwaite, they would have been prepared. So it's possible that it would have been a more intricate, 1-2s, a few 1-2s around the area, a moment, as I said, a moment of individual brilliance or a piece of skill, or play wide down the flanks and then, put in some crosses with the likes of a Trent Arnold, Alexander, etc. So there were a
In
few chances, and of course, long range shooting. We saw where Elliott came on and fired one, where, it was down to Pickford to really parry that one on the crossbar. So that's another option which could have been utilized. Soberslai had a few shots from outside the box as well. But, 2-0, I mean, 3 points in the bag. I don't think the Liverpool fans will be complaining.
Probably not.
But we move, Christophe, and we move to London, the big match, Chelsea versus Arsenal, that one ending 2-2. Give us your take. How did you see that game?
Um, I would say it was probably a good watch, maybe for the the neutral, but for Chelsea and Arsenal fans, it was probably a very horrible match to watch.
Yeah, I
Both
mean, you predicted
teams.
a win in that one in the preview show.
I did predict that win. Arsenal did not show up until the 80th minute. Came back from 2-0 down to be level at the end. Uh, they put on that performance in 10 minutes. Imagine had they showed up earlier.
Well, I mean, it seemed as if Christmas came early for Arsenal. I mean, you were gifted the first goal by Sanchez.
Um, I would not say yes and no. Yes and no. There was still some work to be done.
That was a gift wrap
Uh,
package, early Christmas present.
yeah, but David Ray also gifted Modric a goal.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it could be a case of, two huge blunders,
Yeah,
two defensive, two goalkeeper blunders, to
two
be
goalkeeping
fair.
errors, but there was also a penalty showed in the first half for Arsenal that after the game they did say that yes, and upon review this should have was it Silva on Jesus should have been a penalty.
Mm. Well, I mean,
Sorry,
these
not Silva,
things
Sanchez.
becoming quite common these days where, much is made of post-game talks. But at the end of the day, whatever mistakes or errors which are made in the game, it's not going to affect the final result. But I would have felt that this was a disappointing end for Chelsea. I mean, after going 2 goals up to now draw 2-2, I mean, Arsenal would have obviously left the happier team having come from behind to walk away with a point.
Short term, this is going to be more disappointing for Chelsea right now since they're working, they're building. Long term, this is probably going to be one of those results where you say, had Arsenal gotten the 3 points here, then maybe it might have made a difference when it comes down to tallying up points at the end of the season, who is champion. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
I mean, that may very well be the case, but this was a massive drop points for Chelsea. I mean, you have the team 2-0 up, Cole Palmer penalty, Modric fluke goal, so to speak, and you're 2-0 up, only to be gifted with a goal late in the game to bring it back to 2-1. And then, Gusto falling asleep, caught on his blind side and Trossard tucked it away late in the game. And I mean, Jackson came on and did have a sniff. He had a chance, but Raya came to the rescue. So Chelsea should have left this game feeling rather disappointed. And I mean, Arsenal to some extent as well. I mean, Chelsea hasn't been playing the best of football, and Arsenal looking to become title winners and, allowing yourself to be 2-0 down away from home as well. You know, Zinchenko had a poor game in the first half. He was hauled off at halftime. I don't know.
I I I I have been saying it that I don't trust Zinchenko defensively, but Zinchenko was not the only player at fault here. It was the entire 10, well, not even 10, the entire 11 was at fault here. Poor playing, they looked ungelled. I think the midfield was the issue. The
Mm.
main issue, nobody doesn't know what anybody's doing. There's no forward moving from the midfielders. There's no penetrating runs. You did see the difference when Smith Rowe came on, who was attacking the box. Trossard attacking the box. Like the starting 11 didn't know what they were doing. I do, however, feel that maybe Jesus, Zinchenko were the greatest offenders along with David Raya.
Okay, so from a tactical point of view, then did Arteta get his starting 11 wrong? Because in the previous show we spoke about who would have started in that midfield, and the consensus was Partey would
Right,
have been given the start, so it would have been a midfield of Partey, Rice, and Odegaard.
right.
But we saw it was Jorginho, Rice, and Odegaard who got the start. Jorginho playing more like a deep line playmaker role, and Rice and Odegaard really, playing the number 8 role, almost like box to box midfielders. But to me, it was really the Chelsea tactic which unsettled Arsenal and not necessarily the team selection. Pochettino had a plan where he was pretty much playing with two false nine, so to speak. There was no recognized out and out striker. And to me, that is what created the confusion in the Arsenal defense. The defense really did not know who to mark. You're not marking anyone because there's no one sitting on the back line to say, hey, he's the forward. But it was more rotation, Cole Palmer rotating, Gallagher running on, Sterling out wide, Modric with his pace. So to me, that is what really unsettled the Arsenal. It's almost as if they were not ready for this sort of tactical approach by Pochettino. And, it took a while for them to really adjust. I mean, the first half was all Chelsea in no uncertain term. That game belonged to Chelsea in the first half. But after halftime, with a few substitutions and a few tactical adjustments, Arsenal had a better look at things, where they were creating a few more chances here or there. But in the first half, nothing, absolutely nothing from the Arsenal attack.
I do agree that Pochettino had some excellent tactics, and it was disrupting the Arsenal defense. It was disrupting the midfield because there were overloads there, but it also had to do with the player selection as well. Had Arteta made the choice to play two D mids or simply play Declan Rice alone as the six, and then you played Odegaard with Smith Rowe or some other attacking midfielder, it would have made a complete difference in the way Arsenal started the game. And I also feel like I do not know what Gabriel Jesus was doing. I don't know what he's being paid for at this point, right? I mean, Eddie is not doing any better. It's the same thing. It might have been better to start trust that centre forward, or I don't want to play Kai Havertz at centre forward, but it might have been better as well because I don't know what Eddie is doing. I don't know what Jesus are doing.
Yeah, definitely. Food for thought there indeed. And I mean, it's not all gloom and doom. I mean, bear in mind, Arsenal did walk away with a point, so Chelsea must be kicking themselves definitely for allowing
Chelsea
this one to slip.
definitely kicking themselves. They should have walked away with all 3 points. All 3 points. If Arsenal had not gotten that gifted goal and that kind of woke them up, said, "Hey, maybe we can get back into the game." I do not see the game changing much. The game did feel different when Smith Rowe and Trossard came on, but could that have been because they scored the goal?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, even when that goal from Rice went in, having been gifted with a stray pass from Sanchez in the Chelsea goalkeeper, they were actually on the sideline waiting to be subbed in. And I mean,
Right.
with a goal going in, fresh legs on the field, that just gave them a bit more impetus to push forward and eventually getting an equalizer. And of course, it was a sub which provided that equalizer as well. So in some sense, you could credit Arteta for, I guess making that bold decision, so to speak, and bringing on an attacking player. But
I
definitely, I
mean,
mean, we see both teams trying to play out from the back with some glaring errors coming from both goalkeepers. I mean, while you could possibly forgive Raya, for what you could classify as a cross turn, shot turn goal, that stray pass from chances, there's really no excuse for that. And I mean, uh, Rice took full advantage of it, and that was the turning point in the game for sure. And, luckily, I would say eventually Chelsea held on for a draw, but it could have been far worse as well. So I mean, there's much food for thought. I mean, for both teams going forward. Uh, to me, Arteta has been experimenting quite a bit and making some decisions. But as you know, a manager will live or die by their decision. And I mean, one such bold decision is, the change in goalkeepers. And this was one of those games where you could say, or you could ask, is this the right decision? Is Raya the number one that Arsenal should be working with? What are your thoughts?
based on Arteta's press conference comments regarding goalkeeping, if we are to keep in keeping with what he's saying, based on Raya's performance Saturday, we should be seeing Ramsdale starting the next game, right? Based on what he has said,
So
he
what has
believes
he been saying?
he wants to rotate goalkeepers, right? If a keeper makes a mistake, you're going to swap them out. So Raya has made a number of mistakes in the last couple of matches. He has not been changed. This is the third match in a row we're seeing mistakes from him. It might be better to switch back to Ramsdale now. Ramsdale knows the defense in front of him. He can organize. He's more dominant in the area, and he is much taller than David Raya. I don't see that cross going in on him.
Mm. Ah, the decisions of managers. So you are saying then, Christophe, Ramsdale in for the next game.
I think Ramsdale should be starting the next game. Yeah,
Well, the next game would be a Champions League encounter.
uh,
Are you
we're
saying he
talking
should
Premier League
be
game,
in the okay?
but I do expect that he would be starting that Champions League game as well.
Oh, so you're saying Ramsdale to come in for the Champions League fixture as
And
well as for the
the,
league game following.
exactly, yes.
Yeah, that's a decision we definitely therefore need to keep an eye on. All right, Christoph. So in terms of how the rest of action went in the league, how did you see things?
Uh, well, I did predict Brighton defeated Man City. Didn't happen.
Yeah, Man City, as I anticipated, Man City would have gotten the better of Brighton. Brighton did make it interesting in the last 15 minutes, but up until that point, it was really all Man City.
Right. I thought they had more in the tank, but it looks like they're probably going to struggle this season. We'll see where they lie. Will they, be relegated or bottom half of the table? Not sure. Uh,
Well,
not sure at this point.
that's a far stretch. Last week you commented you're looking at a possible top four, and this
No,
week you're saying
no.
relegated.
I said they look like a top four team the way they played last season. I was very impressed. They dropped off near to the end of the season, but they
Mm,
were very impressive for majority of the season last
right,
year.
right.
But this season they're looking very poor. It might have been the sales that they've made. They haven't replaced the key players. Maybe. Not sure as yet. Maybe in January they'll bring some players in and we'll see a different team. But at the moment, it's not looking good for them.
Yeah, definitely. They're letting in too many goals for sure. They have the ability to score, but defensively they need to solidify. But one of the surprise teams, I must say, is Aston Villa. Aston Villa has been playing some tremendous football, and they are looking quite, healthy at this moment. Possibly pushing for top four if they can continue with this momentum. But a really impressive performance over West Ham. Leon Bailey, coming on and in the latter half of the game also getting on the score sheet. So Aston Villa definitely caught my eye over this weekend. And Newcastle continues to play some quality football again, really turning over Crystal Palace. They have been making some big scoreline, almost making fun of the bookies.
Uh,
Newcastle.
yeah, very impressed by both Aston Villa and Newcastle. Aston Villa has been impressive since Unai Emery took over. Newcastle has looked very impressive as well. I was watching that match closely. I did see all the goals for that game. It was their performance looked very dominant.
Yeah, and the score line itself shows the dominance as well, But for sure, some very interesting results, Man U, squeezing out a win also, and it should make for interesting a game, coming up versus Manchester City, on the weekend. So some quality football being played and the results are coming thick and fast. And of course, Spurs train continues to roll on. They got the better of Fulham this evening and they now sit top of the Premier League table, outright leaders as we speak.
I have to say, this new Spurs manager, Postecoglou, very impressive. Um, I don't. Where is he coming from? I don't know. Like,
Australia, he's Australian, but
is
he
that
was
he
at
was
Celtic
he was
before.
at Celtic. Very
Yes.
impressive. I like his tactics. I like the way he set his team up. Um, for me, the only blip really was the game against Arsenal, where essentially Arsenal gifted them 2 goals.
Yeah, and I mean they were on the end of some really poor quality refereeing decision versus Liverpool as well. I must
Right.
throw that in, If not for that refereeing decision, then things could have turned out differently. But it is what it is, and you just have to accept these things and move on. And yeah, for sure, they are probably playing the best football in the league at the moment, with the loss of Kane and the team really galvanizing, Son changing his position, moving from out wide to more playing a central role, Madison in the midfield pulling the strings, and Sar and Bisaka really stepping up and really dominating that midfield, both defensively and offensively, and of course the defensive line, led by Romero in the back there and the new goalkeeper really pulled off some tremendous saves in the match versus Fulham and throughout the season as well, really saving Spurs from conceding a few goals. And the team is just rolling, momentum is on their side. And it's not beyond the realm of possibility that they could possibly pull off a Leicester City.
I don't think that's possible at the moment.
So,
I,
Christoph, before we head off,
I'm
what's your take at this point in time? Who is your call to win the league?
to win the league at the moment.
At this year, after 9 games, the league is now taking shape. So, based on what you've seen 9 weeks of football. Who is your favorite at the moment?
After 9 weeks of football, I would still give it to City at the moment, just because City have not gotten rolling as yet, and I don't see Tottenham keeping up the pace
Mm.
as it is for me right now. James Madison impressive. Son has always been impressive. Probably too good to be playing for Tottenham. Um, but also they have while I do say Pastafagli looks impressive, he is still also a new manager, and I feel like they're having the effects of a new manager bounce effect going on.
Well, viewers and subscribers, there you have it. Christoph really chiming in with his thoughts and his comments. I'd just like to thank you again, Christoph, for coming on board and sharing your thoughts. Viewers and subscribers, thank you for tuning in to us and continue to share and subscribe to the platform. But until next time, this is Rafa signing off.